I'm going to ask you to do something right here at the start. Make a mental list of everything we learned about the Emperor from just the original trilogy. And I call him only the Emperor because in the original trilogy, we didn't even learn that his name was Emperor Palpatine, or even that he was a Sith. In fact, the word Sith is never even uttered in the original trilogy. Anyway, you should already be about done with your list, and that's because we really don't learn much of anything about him in those first three Star Wars movies, outside of the fact that, well, he's the Emperor, he's Darth Vader's master, and he wants Luke as an apprentice. And that is literally about it, other than, of course, what he looks like and what he sounds like. And if you find your list to be any longer than that, make sure you're not thinking of things we learned about him in the prequels, because we do learn a great deal more about him in those movies. And no, I'm not about to imply that we're going to learn almost nothing about Snoke in this new trilogy, because obviously, the original trilogy was made in a different era of movie making, one where bad guys could just be bad guys, and we'd more or less accept it and fill in the blanks ourselves using a bit of imagination. In fact, when I was a kid, it never bothered me or crossed my mind that there might be, and maybe should be, more to this guy known as the Emperor. Nor did it bother me that we learned pretty much nothing about Yoda, and why this crazy powerful Jedi is just chilling alone on Dagobah of all places in the galaxy, and why Luke has to be the one to fix everything wrong with this galaxy. And I dare say that having so many questions remain unanswered, even after the trilogy ended, added to the charm and appeal of these movies, and made me watch them somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 100 times each when I was a kid, because not knowing everything made the Star Wars universe feel so big, mysterious, and full of possibilities. In stark contrast, if The Empire Strikes Back had come out nowadays, and it was Return of the Jedi we were all waiting for right now, how many theories would there be about Yoda's origin, and how and why he was on Dagobah, and how it would all fit into the story? How endlessly would people be debating whether or not Vader lied to Luke about being his father? After all, Obi-Wan said Vader had betrayed and murdered his father, so who's telling the truth? Certainly it had to be Obi-Wan, right? Unless, of course, somehow Obi-Wan had been playing Luke and maybe even Vader all along, and he actually didn't die, but is really the Emperor. I mean, we could put Obi-Wan's face next to the face of the Emperor's and draw some circles and arrows, and certainly make a good theory out of it, right? And if Vader does turn out to be Luke's dad, we'd all be expecting to be told just how that had all played out and how it was even possible. We'd demand a full explanation and deem it poor storytelling when we didn't get it. And we wouldn't get it, not until the prequels anyway. And nowadays, leaving some mystery in a movie is just considered bad filmmaking most of the time. Now, with all that being said, and to be as blunt and honest with you as I can be, I don't expect to get some deep and amazing story for Snoke. Though it could be argued he's our main antagonist, much like the Emperor was in the original trilogy, it's very likely his goals will be simple and straightforward, not too complex and convoluted, because that'd only distract from what these movies will really be about, the Skywalker family, or in this case, as that beautiful new teaser poster implies, the conflict between Luke and Kylo Ren and the part Rey will likely play between them. Whether or not that means she's a part of the Skywalker family itself, well, that's a whole other debate for another time. My point is that Snoke is important because stopping him and his First Order will set the backdrop for this trilogy, and to use a real bad analogy, it gives our characters a sandbox to play within. Again, just like Palpatine and the Empire did in the original trilogy. I think at most he will somehow be connected to Rey and her purpose of, most likely, trying to bring balance to the Force. And at the very least, he'll just be a powerful, ancient evil of some kind who wants to use Kylo Ren in his plans. I also think there's almost a 0% chance of him being a character we've either met before or even heard of before. And that's not because I don't think some of the theories out there about who Snoke is aren't interesting and well thought out or even compelling, but because you have to ask yourself how they'll serve the story, or even how they'll fit into the story, or if they even do a disservice to it. For example, if Snoke is somehow Palpatine come back from the dead, that pretty much rendered the end of Return of the Jedi meaningless, and the sacrifice of Vader, or Anakin, made when he destroyed him would be pretty much moot. Same would go for Snoke being Anakin reincarnated or returned from the dead somehow. Can't we just let Anakin have the perfect ending at the conclusion of Return of the Jedi when he saves his son? I'm fine with seeing him again as a Force ghost, helping Luke and Rey perhaps, but seeing him go back to the dark side and undoing his rise and fall seen in the first 6 movies, that I just can't get on board with. It's something I couldn't see Kathleen Kennedy greenlighting either. Now, as I said before, there are some really good ideas for Snoke, such as him being Darth Plagueis the Wise, who is the master of Darth Sidious, or the aforementioned Emperor. If done right, it certainly could be a cool link between the prequels, where he's first mentioned, and the sequels where he shows up again. And people have been guessing that Plagueis might be Snoke since, well, before we even knew the first thing about Snoke. It's kind of funny, but the first evidence people even cited for this theory was that Rey had a staff and Plagueis once had a staff, so they must be related somehow. That she must have Plagueis' staff somehow, even though that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So what's wrong with this theory overall, other than it really started on a shared staff theory? Nothing, other than the fact that I don't think it's going to serve the story they want to tell. That, and a lot of people in the know at Lucasfilm have more or less shot it down already. To be honest, I was holding out hope that Snoke and Plagueis could be one and the same until the Last Jedi teaser trailer, and now I've let the last of that hope go. Why, you might be wondering? Mainly because of Luke's line to Rey about it being so much bigger. Because you see, by making Snoke someone we already know, you're not making Star Wars any bigger, you're actually only making it smaller. Instead of introducing something cool, new, and unexpected into this story, you're just going back to the well and reusing something that's already been done. I mean, you might love the idea of Mace Windu somehow surviving being electrocuted and then that incredibly long fall that followed, and then turning to the dark side and coming back more pissed off than ever, but that doesn't expand on the mythos of Star Wars in any way, shape, or form. Snoke is going to be something new and different. He's going to bring a new type of threat into Star Wars, yet at the same time, whatever that is will still, more or less, take a back seat to the story of our heroes. As I've suggested before, I think most likely Snoke is some kind of ancient dark side user that has been trapped out in the unknown regions for a very long time, as hinted at in the Aftermath book series. And in order to defeat him, it's going to take something besides the Jedi we know them to be, and instead probably the Jedi as they used to be. Hence Luke went looking for the first Jedi Temple, and that's why he utters that line about it's time for the Jedi to end, because, as they are now, they cannot stop this new type of threat, or this old threat, I guess you could say. Personally, I just don't see any way that they can up the stakes in these next two movies to make the scale of Star Wars even grander by recycling an old threat and bringing back something that has been defeated before. Yeah, I love the idea of Plagueis being Snoke, but if he was going to rule the galaxy, maybe he should have foresaw his apprentice murdering him in his sleep. And I'm a huge fan of Palpatine, but he died when Vader picked him up and tossed him down that shaft. And even if he survived that much, I dare say when the Death Star blew up, that was the end of him. As for any other presumed dead character coming back to be our new big bad guy, let's not turn Star Wars into a soap opera where dead doesn't mean dead, but it just means you have amnesia on some distant planet until someone finds you again. And that's pretty much exactly what they did with Darth Maul. And yes, I did love that he got his story expanded on, and it ended so beautifully against Obi-Wan on Tatooine. But let's let that be the one and only time in Star Wars where someone we were 99.9% sure was dead comes back to life. And let's let Snoke be something new to Star Wars, not the return of an old threat that someone else has already defeated. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think. Will Snoke be a character we've seen or heard of before? Or will they bring a fresh new villain into Star Wars for us? Speak your mind in the comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. Also, please subscribe to my channel or check out some of my other videos. If you've already done all that, then thanks for your continued support. If you want to know when I upload new videos, then click the notification button or just follow me on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching.